يا شهر الهدى يا شهر
عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معاصيك، ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك، ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا. اللهم متعنا بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقوتنا ما أحييتنا، واجعله الوارث منا، واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا، وانصرنا على من عادانا. اللهم لا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا، ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا، ولا تسلط علينا من لا يخافك ولا يرحمنا. وصل اللهم وسلم على سيدنا محمد، والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نسألك أن تجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهك الكريم، وأن تيسر لنا الخير أينما كنا وحيثما توجهنا، إنك على كل شيء قدير. لله تعالى. Inshallah, we will continue from where we left off in our brief explanation of the text of Abu Shuja. May Allah have mercy upon him. وهذا الفصل في التيمم. This chapter pertains to التيمم, the dry purification. وَلُغَةً هُوَ الْقَصْدِ. In the Arabic language, tayammum means seeking. وَشَرْعًا إِيصَالُ تُرَابٍ طَهُورٍ لِلْوَجْهِ وَالْيَدَيْنِ بدلاً عن وضوء أو غسل عضو بشرائط مخصوصة. Religiously, at-tayammum is to let soil, which is pure, reach the face and the hands instead of performing wudu or ghusl or washing an organ with specific conditions. والأصل في جوازه الكتاب والسنة قبل الإجماع. The basis of its permissibility prior to the consensus is the Quran and the authentic hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال الله تعالى: فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. In this verse, we are informed that if you do not find water, then seek pure soil. فَتَيَمَّمُوا, then seek pure soil. قال ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنهما, Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah accept his good deeds and the good deeds of his father, he said, المعنى وإن كنتم مرضى فتيمموا. If you were sick, then perform tayammum. وإن كنتم على سفر, and if you were traveling, وَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, and you did not find water, فَتَيَمَّمُوا, then perform tayammum. وَقَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, and the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, وَجُعِلَتْ لِي الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا. The earth has been made a masjid for me. وَتُرْبَتُهَا طَهُورًا, and its soil has been made purifying. رواه مسلم وغيره. This hadith was narrated by Imam Muslim and others. فقال القاضي أبو شجاع رحمه الله. So Al-Qadi Abu Shuja, may Allah have mercy upon him, he said, وَشَرَائِطُ التَّيَمُّمِ خَمْسَةُ أَشْيَاء. He said the conditions of tayammum are 5 things. أحدها, and the first of them, وجود العذر بسفر ومرض. The existence of the excuse during or while traveling or sick. وضابط جواز التيمم العجز عن استعمال الماء إما لتعذره أو لعسره لخوف ضرر ظاهر وللعجز أسباب منها السفر والمرض. The precise statement concerning the permissibility of making tayammum is the inability to use water, either by it not being capable to use it, and by the water not being available, or by a difficulty in using it, such as fearing an apparent harm, if one were to use the water. And the inability, there are reasons. The inability to use the water, there are reasons. Among these reasons is traveling and sickness. والثاني, the second condition, as Al-Qadi Abu Shuja says, دخول وقت الصلاة, the entrance of the prayer time. لقوله تعالى, and this is based upon the saying of Allah, إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا, which al-ayah, which means if you stood for the prayer, فاغسلوا, then wash, and until the end of the ayah. والقيام إليها لا يكون إلا بعد دخول الوقت, and one does not stand for the prayer until after the prayer time has entered. وخرج الوضوء, and al-wudu is excluded in this context. لدليل, because there is evidence for that. That is, one does not make tayammum prior to the prayer time setting in. For tayammum, one does not make it until after the prayer time has started. This does not apply to performing wudu, and there is evidence for that. There is evidence for that. وَلِأَنَّ التَّيَمُّمَ طَهَارَةٌ ضَرُورَةٌ. And in addition to that, in addition to the evidence, the verse in the Quran and what came in the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, at-tayammum is a purification of necessity or an emergency. وَلَا ضَرُورَةَ إِلَيْهِ قَبْلَ دُخُولِ وَقْتِ الصَّلَاةِ. And there is no necessity for it, there's no emergency to perform it until after the prayer time has come in. وَالثَّالِثُ, the third condition, طَلَبُ الْمَاءِ, is seeking the water. لِقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا. If you did not find water, then seek a purifying soil, then perform tayammum. أمرنا بالتيمم عند عدم الوجدان. So we are ordered to perform tayammum when we cannot find water. ولا يعلم عدمه إلا بالطلب. And the absence of water would not be known except after searching for it. وكيفية الطلب, and the method of searching or finding or seeking water, أن يفتش رحله, is for one to examine or inspect one's luggage. لاحتمال أن يكون في الرحل ماء, because of the possibility that there is water in one's luggage. وهو لا يشعر به, and one did not realize it. So they have luggage, they would need to search through their luggage because maybe there is water there that they're unaware of. فإن كان معه رفقة, and if there were a group of people with the person, وجب سؤالهم, then it is an obligation for him to ask them. He does not have water, he is obligated to ask them for water. إلى أن يستوعبهم, to the extent that his asking would include all of them. ولا يجب أن يطلب من كل واحد من الرفقة بعينه. And it's not an obligation for him to ask every individual among them directly, personally, if they have water. He does not have to go, do you have water? Okay, do you have water? Okay, do you have water? Until he goes through each one at a time. He does not have to do that. بل يكفي أن ينادي فيهم من معه ماء ونحوه. Rather, it is sufficient for him to call out to them, who among you has water? Does anyone have water? This is enough. Or he says similar statements. As long as he calls them in a way that includes all of them. If they are divided up into group sections, subgroups, he may have to go to this one group, ask this one group in one instance, and go to the other group and ask them in one instance. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ, if he does not find water among the people who are with him, nor did he find water in his luggage, نَظَرَ حَوَالَيْهِ مِنَ الْجِهَاتِ الْأَرْبَعِ, then he would look around him in the four directions. So he would look in front of him, behind him, to the right, to the left, and he look in the northern direction or the southern direction, look towards the eastern direction and the western direction. إن كان بمستوٍ من الأرض, and this is provided that he was in a land which was leveled. He's in a land which does not have hills, mountains, or valleys, depressions, in which it is sufficient for him to survey his surroundings just by looking. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَوِي الْمَوْضِعُ نَظَرَ. Now, if the area, the place that he was in, was not leveled, then what is taken into consideration, in خَافَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ, if he was afraid of, if he was afraid for himself, أو ماله, or he was afraid for his property, his money, لو تردد, that if he were to go back and forth, لم يجب التردد, then he is not obligated to go back and forth in various directions in search of water. لأن هذا الخوف, because this fear يبيح له التيمم, renders performing tayammum permissible for him. So he does not have water in his luggage. He asks the people around him and they don't have water. So he needs to then look for it. He's not in a land which he can survey just by looking around. So he has to go forward. But he's afraid if he does that, he'll be harmed or his money will be taken. He's fearful. So that fear itself renders tayammum permissible. So he would not be obligated in that case to go and leave his property behind or to put himself at risk. فَإِن لَمْ يَخَفْ, now if he is not afraid, there's no fear that he himself will be harmed, or he has no fear for his money or property, وَجَبَ عَلَيْهِ التَّرَدُّدْ, then he is obligated to go back and forth. Why I'm saying go back and forth, because It is not enough for him to go in one direction. He is not in an area where the land is leveled. Maybe one direction it is leveled, or two directions. But in this direction, there are hills. In that direction, there are a canyon or a valley, which he cannot see from, he cannot survey from where he currently is. So he has to go here, and then come back, and then go that way. So if he has no fear in doing that, not for himself, nor for his property, then he is obligated to go and check, to look for water. إلى حد الغوث. He has to go at least to the extent where if he needed help, he would be able to call out to his companions and his travel mates for assistance. ويختلف ذلك باستواء الأرض. And the exact distance will vary depending upon the terrain, the level of the terrain. واختلافها صعودا وهبوطا. And it varies according to the elevations that are in the terrain and the depressions, or like the valleys, so forth and so on. And this is the third condition. والرابع, the fourth, تعذر استعماله أي الماء. The fourth condition is the inability to use the water. بأن يخاف من استعمال الماء على هلاك نفسه. So the inability to use the water could be because, so in this case, one has water, but despite having water, is not able to use the water. Why is he not able to use it? It could be because he is afraid that using the water would result in his death, for example, or him being harmed severely. أو منفعة عضوه, or some harm reaching one of his organs. Maybe he has an injury. So if he used the water, this water would cause an infection, or he would get gangrene. And the result would be he would need to have his arm or limb amputated, for example. So this would be an excuse. Yani, an example of the inability to use the water. وَيَدْخُلُ فِي الْعُذْرِ. What is included in the inability, being incapable of using the water, مَا لَوْ كَانَ بِقُرْبِهِ مَاءٌ, even if water was close, وَخَافَ, and he was afraid, لَوْ قَصَدَهُ, that if he sought the water, عَلَى نَفْسِهِ مِنْ سَبُعٍ, he was afraid that if he sought the water, he would be harmed by a wild animal. أو عدوٍ, or he would be harmed by an enemy. أو على ماله, or he was afraid for his money. من سارق, that someone would burglarize, stealthily steal his money. If he used the water, someone would burglarize him and steal his money. أو غاصبا, or he was afraid of someone that if he goes to get the water, which is close, someone there at the water would take his money by force, and he would be robbed. ثم قال أبو شجاع رحمه الله وإعوازه بعد الطلب. So this fourth condition that Al-Qadi Abu Shuja' mentions is that one would be incapable of using the water that he has, or one needs the water after seeking it. قال الإمام النووي رحمه الله تعالى في المجموع. Al-Imam al-Nawawi, may Allah have mercy upon him, he said in Al-Majmu' واتفق أصحابنا, that our colleagues have agreed. And what he means by our colleagues are those high-ranking scholars within the madhab of Al-Imam al-Shafi'i, like Al-Imam al-Ruyani, Imam al-Haramain, al-Juwayni, al-Bayhaqi, and the like. So he said, اتفق أصحابنا على أنه إذا احتاج إليه لعطش نفسه, that they agreed that if one needed it, yani the water, they needed the water because of his own thirst, أو رفيقه, or because of his friend, أو حيوان محترم, or the water was needed by a respectable animal, من مسلم, that belonged to a Muslim, أو ذميا, or a dhimmi person, the one who pays the jizya, أو مستأمنا, أو مستأمن, or the one who was granted safety, أو بهيمة, or a animal, جاز التيمم بلا إعادة, then making a tayammum would be permissible, and one would not have to repeat the prayer. قال أصحابنا, then he continues to say, our colleagues said, ويحرم عليه الوضوء في هذه الحالة, and they said it is not permissible for him to make wudu in this case. Yani he is in need of water, he does not have enough water to drink and make wudu or make a ghusl. And if he does not have the water to drink, if he does not drink from the water, then this would lead to dying of thirst or being severely harmed, as we already mentioned. So in this case, he would save himself or save a friend, for example, or a respectable animal. If he has a camel, for example, he has water for his camel or wudu, but not for both. What does he do? He would give water to his camel and he would make tayammum. وَالْخَامِسُ, and the fifth condition that Al-Qadi Abu Shuja' mentions, التراب الطاهر, is having pure soil, لما سبق بيانه, as we've clarified previously, فلا يصح التيمم إلا بتراب طاهر خالص غير مستعمل. So it is not valid to make tayammum except with pure soil, so soil which is not contaminated with filth, and it is not mixed with anything that affects the validity of using it in tayammum, which we will clarify further. And it must not be soil that was used previously for making tayammum. ونقف هنا ونكمل إن شاء الله فيما بعد. Inshallah, we will stop here for now, and we will continue with the remaining statements of Al-Qadi Abu Shuja. وبالله التوفيق. اللهم سامحنا واعف عنا واجعل القرآن ربيع قلوبنا ونورا لأبصارنا وجوارحنا يا أرحم الراحمين، واغفر لنا يا ربي فإننا مؤمنون. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. وبارك الله بكم وأحسن الله إليكم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يا شهر الخيرات والإحسان والبركات يا رمضان